My name is Alyssa Morgan. I'm 29 years old. 3 months ago, I was supposed to marry Ethan Caldwell. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 1. The kind of relationship that looks stable from the outside. Holiday photos, Sunday brunches, soft arguments about paint colors. I believed we were building something solid until his father turned our engagement into a negotiation. The dinner was supposed to be casual, just family. Ethan's parents' house smelled like rosemary chicken and expensive candles that tried too hard to seem effortless. Gordon Caldwell sat at the head of the table, like always. Perfectly pressed shirt, that leased BMW key fob sitting beside his plate like a trophy. He always gave me a strange feeling. Real estate broker. Talks endlessly about generational wealth. Constantly between big deals. Somehow always behind on his mortgage, but Ethan adored him. So I ignored the red flags. After dessert, Gordon wiped his mouth with deliberate slowness. Then he reached beside his chair and pulled out a manila folder, an actual folder. He slid it across the table toward me like we were negotiating a corporate merger. "Before you officially join this family," he said smoothly, "we need to discuss Ethan's education investment." Investment. I looked at Ethan. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at his plate. The investment was $127,000 in student loans for his master's degree in creative writing from a private university. The one Gordon insisted he attend because prestige mattered more than price. "I need you to sign as co-borrower on the refinancing," Gordon continued. "Dual income gets better rates." I opened the folder. Variable rate, starting at 8.9%. 20-year term. My stomach tightened. "Gordon," I said carefully, "this makes me equally responsible." "For supporting your future husband's dreams," he corrected. He leaned back, smug, testing. "Unless," he added softly, "you don't believe in his potential." Ethan finally spoke. "Dad, we said this would be voluntary." "Sweetheart," Gordon cut in, not even looking at him. "A real woman doesn't let her man struggle with debt alone." The air in the room shifted. I set the papers down. "I need time to review this with a financial advisor." Gordon's face flushed red. "A financial advisor? This is about trust. You either commit fully to this family." He let it hang. "Or what?" I asked quietly. "Or maybe you're not ready for marriage. We can't have a wedding if you're not committed to the family burden. I mean, investment." I looked at Ethan. He wasn't defending me. He was just anxious. And that's when something inside me went cold. "I understand," I said. Not what they expected. That night I couldn't sleep. Ethan lay beside me, apologizing. "I didn't know he'd spring it like that." "But you knew he wanted me to sign," I said. Silence. He exhaled. "Yes." The next morning, I made calls. A mutual friend worked in the university's financial aid office. "Off the record," she whispered. Ethan graduated with about $63,000 in federal loans. The rest were Parent Plus. Parent Plus loans. In the parent's name. I started digging. Gordon's Facebook was wide open. Cabo trip photos. Timestamps matched loan disbursement dates. New BMW lease. Golf clubs. He hadn't just invested in Ethan's education. He'd financed his lifestyle, and now he wanted me to absorb it. That evening, I confronted Ethan. He broke down almost immediately. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said. He said he was covering living expenses, but I found out later he was using it for himself. He promised he'd fix it. "And you were going to tell me when?" "After the wedding. After I was legally tied to him. After it was harder to leave." I stared at the man I thought I was building a life with. "You knew," I whispered. He couldn't deny it. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I simply held out my hand. "Give me the ring." He sobbed when he handed it over. But he handed it over. The next day, Gordon called me 43 times. Voicemails ranged from, "Let's discuss this like adults," to, "You're destroying my son," to, "I'll sue you for emotional damages." My favorite was, "That ring was a promise. You can't just take it back." Actually, I could. Conditional gift laws in my state are very clear. By the 5th day, he called from a different number. "Let's compromise," he said. You take half the loans, we proceed with the wedding. There it was, still trying to negotiate. But what he didn't know yet was that I had already made my decision. And it wasn't about love anymore. It was about survival. 5 days after I gave the ring back, Gordon called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. His tone was different this time, less aggressive, almost reasonable. "Listen," he began, clearing his throat. "Maybe I was harsh. We can find a middle ground." There it was, the word compromise. "You take on half the loans," he continued, "and we proceed with the wedding. I'll even reduce our contribution by $5,000. I almost smiled. "Your contribution?" I asked calmly. "Yes, Ethan was putting in $9,000 toward the wedding." "From where?" I asked. "His savings? Or another Parent Plus loan?" Silence. "You're being dramatic," he snapped. "No," I replied softly. "There is no wedding." He exhaled sharply. "You don't understand what you're doing. Ethan is devastated. His anxiety medication alone, not my responsibility anymore." He changed tactics. "What about the deposits? The venue? Catering? You're going to lose thousands." "I'm handling it." "You're throwing away $35,000. That's when I finally let him in on what he didn't know. The wedding budget had been $35,000. I had saved $26,000 of it. Ethan was supposed to contribute the remaining $9,000, but there were always unexpected expenses. The entire fund sat in my savings account, untouched. And every vendor contract, in my name only. Ethan had insisted on that. "You're better at paperwork," he told me while we were planning. "It stresses me out." The irony still makes me laugh. Within 48 hours of ending the engagement, I had already called the venue. There was another couple waitlisted for our date. They agreed to transfer the contract if I allowed them to keep a small administrative fee. I lost $800 instead of $8,000. The caterer? A college friend who had just opened his restaurant. He had been doing the event at cost as a wedding gift. When I told him it was off, he exhaled in relief. "Thank God," he said. Ethan kept adding gluten-free, dairy-free, keto, low-carb, no onion restrictions. The photographer was my cousin. The florist was a family friend. In total, I lost around $2,000, which meant I still had roughly $24,000. Do you know what I did with it? I put a down payment on a house, a small 2-bedroom fixer-upper in a decent neighborhood. Peeling paint, outdated carpet, but solid foundation. Closed in 30 days because I had cash. The day I got the keys, I stood in the empty living room and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. Meanwhile, Gordon went on the offensive. Through mutual friends, I found out he'd been telling everyone I had financially abused Ethan, that I had stolen their wedding funds. He even called my parents, told them they raised a con artist. My mother's response was legendary. "At least my daughter knows not to spend loan money on a BMW lease." Apparently, Gordon didn't realize social media timestamps are public. Cabo photos, tagged resort, same week as loan disbursement. He wasn't even subtle. Then came the next chapter of humiliation. 2 weeks after we split, Ethan was on dating apps. I didn't care until I heard who he matched with. Rachel Bennett, 30, investment banker, drove a Tesla, polished, smart. They dated for 3 weeks. Then Rachel did something revolutionary. She Googled him. Gordon's Facebook rants were public. Posts about women who refuse to support their husband's financial growth, about dodging responsibility. Rachel asked Ethan about it on their 4th date. "So," she reportedly said, "your father wanted your ex to co-sign your student loans?" Ethan tried to spin it. "It was about partnership." "How much?" she asked. $127,000. Witnesses say Rachel blinked slowly. Then she excused herself to go to the restroom. She never came back. Left him with a $200 dinner bill. The next day, Gordon called me screaming. "You've ruined Ethan's reputation!" "How?" I asked. "By not signing loan documents? You made us look like gold diggers." "If the shoe fits." He hung up. Meanwhile, I spent my weekends pulling up old carpet in my new house. The smell was terrible. The wallpaper was worse. Every coat of paint felt like reclaiming something. I posted a few progress pictures online. Nothing dramatic, just new project homeowner. Ethan saw them. He sent a long message. You're rubbing this in my face. You know I always wanted a house. Yes, I knew. You wanted a house you didn't have to pay for. I didn't respond because something else was happening behind the scenes. Something Gordon hadn't planned for. Remember those loans he wanted me to co-sign? They were parent plus loans. In his name, not Ethan's. And without my credit score to refinance them, Gordon was stuck. 3 months after our breakup, the loans went into default. The first call I got from him that day was not confident. It was panicked. They're garnishing my wages, he said, voice shaking. They can't do this. I leaned back in my newly painted kitchen. Who can't? The loan servicer. They're taking 15% of my commissions. I let the silence stretch. Those are your loans, Gordon. But they were for Ethan. $63,000 was for Ethan. The rest was for your BMW and Cabo. Silence. How do you know that? It doesn't matter. His breathing grew heavier. This is your fault, he whispered. If you just signed. No, I said calmly. This is the consequence of trying to make me pay for your midlife crisis. He hung up. But that wasn't even the best part, because Diane didn't know. Not yet, and when she found out, everything changed. Diane found out about the loan default by accident. She and Gordon had been trying to refinance their house. Apparently, money had gotten tight. The BMW lease payments, the fluctuating commissions, the minimum payments on 6-figure Parent Plus loans that had been quietly accruing interest for years. When the lender ran Gordon's credit, the refinance application stalled. Your file shows a federal student loan default, the loan officer said. Default. Diane told me later she thought it was a mistake. Until she went home and started opening mail Gordon had been hiding in his office drawer. Collection notices, wage garnishment letters, final demand statements. And then she found something worse. A second mortgage, taken out the previous year, her signature on the documents. A signature she swore she never signed. That's when the illusion cracked. She called me 2 days later, crying. Alyssa, he made a mistake. He's under pressure. You know how real estate is. I let her talk. He said you misunderstood, that this was about helping Ethan start his marriage strong. No, I replied quietly. It was about consolidating debt into my name. There was a long pause. Is it true, she whispered, that some of the loan money went to Cabo? Yes. Silence again. I could almost hear her piecing it together. The Facebook photos, the timing, the new golf clubs, the boat he briefly bragged about before selling it. He told me those were business trips. They were, I said, just not the kind that generate revenue. A week later, she filed for divorce. Gordon called me that night. You talked to her. I answered her questions. You've turned my own wife against me. No, I said. Your financial records did. But the collapse didn't stop at home. Gordon's brokerage firm got wind of the wage garnishment. Having a real estate agent with active federal debt issues isn't exactly comforting to clients who trust you with escrow accounts. He wasn't fired, but he was placed on probationary oversight. Every transaction had to be reviewed. His commission split dropped from 70-30 to 50-50. 15% garnished by the government. Another chunk cut by supervision fees. For a man obsessed with generational wealth, the irony was brutal. Then Ethan texted me. Different tone this time. No defensiveness. No passive aggression. Can we talk? In person? Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet coffee shop. He looked smaller. Weight loss, dark circles, nails bitten down. Stress had stripped him of the confidence he used to wear like a shield. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I didn't respond. I should have told you about the loans, about Dad using the money. Yes, I said. He swallowed. I didn't think he'd let it get this bad. You didn't think I'd find out until after we were married. His silence was confirmation. My mom found out about the second mortgage, he continued. She's divorcing him. I know. He nodded slowly. She needs help. I felt my jaw tighten. He pulled papers from his bag. Her lawyer needs a statement about Dad trying to force you to co-sign. It shows a pattern of financial deception. I looked at the papers without touching them. You want me to help your mother divorce your father? Yes. And where were you, I asked evenly, when he tried to make me legally responsible for his debt? Ethan's eyes filled. I was scared. Of what? Of losing him. And you were willing to risk losing me instead. He flinched. I loved you. I studied him. Part of me believed that was true, but love without integrity is just dependency. I didn't think it was fraud, he whispered. He always said this is how families work. You share burdens. No, I replied softly. He taught you to pass burdens onto other people. He wiped his face. I'm not asking for us, he said. I'm asking for Mom. I finally picked up the papers. I'll think about it. That night, I sat alone in my half-renovated living room. The walls freshly painted, but the floors still unfinished. They wanted me to help clean up the mess they created. Part of me wanted to walk away completely, let the Caldwell family implode without my involvement. But there was something deeper at stake. Accountability, not revenge, not reconciliation, just truth. So I wrote the statement, not for Ethan, not even for Diane. For the record, I detailed everything. The dinner, the folder, the coercion, the threats about canceling the wedding, the discovery of misused funds, the Cabo trip funded by educational loans. Diane's lawyer called me personally. This is very helpful, she said carefully. Is there more? I asked. There was. Much more. As divorce proceedings began, forensic accountants uncovered additional debts. Credit cards opened in Diane's name. A short-term car loan for a boat Gordon had sold 2 months later. Hidden balances. Late notices. The Parent Plus loans were just the surface, but the real domino fell from an unexpected direction. The IRS. Apparently, when you use federal education loan funds for non-education expenses, it doesn't just flirt with fraud. It becomes taxable income if misused. Diane's lawyer, being thorough, reported everything. 3 weeks later, Gordon called me at 2:07 a.m., drunk. You destroyed my life, he slurred. I sat up in bed. No, Gordon, I said calmly. You destroyed your life. I just refused to participate. My son won't even talk to me. Can you blame him? He had to move back in with Diane. He can't afford his apartment. Maybe he should get a job that uses that creative writing degree. He launched into a rant about loyalty, respect, and how his generation understood commitment. I put him on speaker, made myself a sandwich. Eventually, he ran out of energy. You could have had everything, he muttered. A husband, a family, connections. I looked around my small house. Fresh paint, my furniture, my name on the deed. I do have everything, I said. A house, a job, a clean credit report, parents who aren't divorcing over fraud. What exactly did I lose? He hung up. The next morning, Ethan texted me. Dad's moving in with Grandma. The house is being sold. I didn't respond. Another message followed. I got a job at Barnes & Noble. Good. Another. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this. That one I answered. You're right. I didn't. But the story wasn't over because consequences were still unfolding. And for the first time in months, they weren't mine. The divorce proceedings dragged on for months. What started as a misunderstanding about loans unraveled into something far uglier. Forensic accountants dug through everything. Credit cards opened in Diane's name without her knowledge. A personal line of credit Gordon had taken out against the house. A car loan for a boat he bought, bragged about for 6 weeks, then quietly sold at a loss. And the Parent Plus loans, the original domino, were confirmed as misused funds. When Diane's attorney submitted documentation about the Cabo trip, lining up perfectly with federal loan disbursement dates, things escalated. That's when the IRS entered the picture. Apparently, when you divert federal education funds toward personal luxury expenses, you're not just unethical, you're potentially liable for unreported taxable income. The penalties were brutal. Back taxes, interest, fines. Gordon called me again the night he received the notice. Not drunk this time, just defeated. They're saying I owe $34,000 in taxes and penalties. I said nothing. You wrote that statement. Yes. You could have stayed out of it. I could have, I agreed. But you tried to legally bind me to your deception. He exhaled shakily. At my age, starting over. You're 58, I said, not 88. He laughed bitterly. My BMW got repossessed last week. I already knew. I'd seen it listed at auction online. Went for $11,000 under book value. Generational wealth indeed. The divorce finalized 2 months later. Diane got the house, then had to sell it almost immediately to pay off the hidden debts Gordon had accumulated. She now rents a modest one-bedroom apartment. Works as a receptionist at a dental office. Quiet. Stable. Honest work. Ethan moved in with her temporarily. The creative writing degree still hadn't translated into income. But to his credit, he kept his job at Barnes & Noble. Full-time now. I heard through mutual friends that he's dating someone new. Her name is Melissa. She apparently also has substantial student loans. I suppose he finally found that financial partnership his father believed in. As for me, 6 months after buying my fixer-upper, the market shifted. Interest rates dropped slightly. Demand in my neighborhood rose. I had spent weekends repainting walls, replacing fixtures, refinishing cabinets, tearing up carpet. Nothing glamorous, but strategic. When I listed the house, it sold in 10 days. $38,000 profit. After 6 months, I rolled that equity straight into a better home. 3 bedrooms, bigger yard, quieter street. The closing felt different this time. No anxiety, no shared accounts, just my signature. My name alone on the deed. Around that same time, I got a LinkedIn notification. Gordon Caldwell viewed your profile. That was it. Just a view. No message. No connection request. I updated my profile the next morning. Promoted to senior project manager. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Then there was the ring. I'd kept it in a small velvet box in my dresser, not out of sentiment, out of practicality. One afternoon, I took it to a jeweler downtown. He examined it under bright lights. $8,700, he said. Fair. As he processed the payment, he asked casually, "Was there a story behind this one?" "Yes," I said. "What kind?" "The kind where I dodged a $27,000 bullet." He laughed. "You should buy a lottery ticket with luck like that." "Luck had nothing to do with it," I replied. And that's the truth. This wasn't luck. It was discomfort. It was choosing the harder conversation instead of the easier wedding. It was asking questions instead of signing papers. It was recognizing that love without transparency isn't partnership. It's liability. A few weeks ago, my cousin, the one who was supposed to photograph our wedding, shot a proposal. After the session, the groom mentioned he'd heard about that situation with the loans. Apparently, mutual friends had discussed it. "It made us sit down with a financial counselor before we set a date," he said. "Full disclosure on everything." That made me smile. Maybe my mess saved someone else from one. The last message I ever received from Ethan was simple. "I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. Because happiness isn't something you announce to someone who tried to negotiate your future. It's something you build, brick by brick, paint stroke by paint stroke, signature by signature. And sometimes the best investment you'll ever make is walking away from a bad deal, even when that deal comes wrapped in a tailored suit, sits across a dinner table, and calls itself family. Gordon, if you're still hate scrolling my socials, and I know you are, I hope you've learned something. Debt doesn't disappear because you push it onto someone else. And generational wealth doesn't start with coercion. It starts with integrity. As for me, my credit score is in the 800s. My mortgage is manageable. My name is the only one on my contracts. And no one will ever slide a manila folder across a dinner table to test my worth again.